Several months ago, I was in Iraq at the request of General Ray Odierno and Ambassador Ryan Crocker with a team that did an objective look of everything, soup to nuts out there, as they were preparing for their strategic plan for the new administration on out to the withdrawal of our combat forces. And both the ambassador and the general asked us to look at everything, to look at every aspect of what they were doing, what the Iraqis were doing, and others. One thing that struck me out there was the non-military things that the coalition forces were doing, the uniformed military. It struck me on the scope of this. I told Ray Odierno, when I sit in your briefing every morning in your ops center, if I close my eyes, I wouldn't believe I was in a military organization. And he laughed at it. I said, and said, you know, that's true. We've taken these on because nobody else is doing them. I started to write down the things they were doing that were non-military. And I said, Ray, they range from agriculture to zoos, A to Z. You open and run the recreational swimming pools. You monitor the date palm harvest. You know, you're involved in the provision of electricity, in engagement between the tribal leaders. You know, everything from the most mundane pieces or parts to the most complex issues like engagement and the working of tribal issues and friction between ethnic and religious groups. And the reason that General Petraeus and General Odierno took these on is because they needed to be done. And what concerned me was what happens when we pull the uniforms away from this. Now go back to our initial entry into Iraq. And I remember asking several of the commanders before they left, as they asked me to look at their plans and review them and see what I thought, and I said, who's doing the Phase 4, the so-called stabilization and reconstruction? And they told me, well, we're told we're not involved in that. Somebody else is going to do that. And here we are, how many years later, and the military's doing it. And we know that, you know, God bless our soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines, that they do take this on, and our coalition partners, too. But this isn't the right role for the military. They're not the experts. As well-intentioned as it might be, we need to bolster the other elements of our own government, and not only our own government, but the private volunteer organizations, the NGOs, the international organizations, and learn how to build better partnerships. I could not have asked for a better panel with the breadth of experiences we have here. And I'm going to briefly do an introduction.